Well, good morning. We are here with the two candidates to be the next Will County executive. My name is Alex Ortiz. I'm with Shaw Local News Network, here with my colleague Jeff Knox of the Daily Herald, and we are interviewing the two candidates for this November's election. Here with us today, we have Democrat State Senator Jennifer Bertino-Tarrant and the Republican Nick Ficarello. Thank you two both for taking time to speak to us about these important issues, and we really appreciate your time. So let's just start. General introductions. Tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of why you were choosing to run for this position now. Senator Bertino-Tarrant, can we start with you?
Sure, thank you. And thank you to the Herald News and the Daily Herald for hosting this. I am a lifelong Will County resident, born and raised in Joliet. I currently live in Shorewood. I was raised around my father's service station in Joliet. I have dedicated my life to education advocacy and public service. I began my career as a high school teacher, then became a school principal. I entered public service in 2006 when I was elected to the Will County Regional Superintendent of Schools. There, I was able to work with our 29 school districts. I opened up Lincoln School for at-risk students. Worked on professional development for opportunities for our teachers. In 2012, when a new Senate seat was developed, I switched over to the state side and I won the state Senate seat. One of probably my most important accomplishments did center around education, and that was our historic education funding bill, which we all know, as we've talked about over the years, is one of the only true ways that we can start helping relieve the tax burden for our local communities. I decided to run for Will County Executive when the late Larry Walsh decided he was not going to run. I enjoy public service. I felt it was time for me to come home and do what I enjoy doing more locally. So I'm here because I believe my experience, my leadership, is what our county needs. I have a history of working with people on both sides of the aisle to get things done, and I want to take that style of leadership to Will County. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Ficarello, how about you?
Well, my name is Nick Ficarello. Thank you for having and posting this forum. I'm the Will County Republican candidate for the office of Chief Executive. Immediately in the past, the chief executive has been a Democrat and has held that position for a significant amount of time, of 16 years. Today, the Democratic Party has a solid majority on the Will County board and every office in Will County that's of elected position. I am running for the chief executive position because I believe I can offer a change in leadership that will secure the most efficient and cost-effective government possible, along with restoring a balance of government in Will County, since all elected offices are held by Democrats. I have been a career law enforcement officer over 40 years, lifelong resident of Will County. Worked my way up through the ranks at the Sheriff's Department to become an administrator and a leader, a deputy chief there, in charge of special operations and investigations, and ultimately ended up working as the chief of police of Braidwood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys for that. All right, let's just start with I would say probably one of, if not the most important issues that I hear a lot from residents and that the county has been trying to deal with. And while it doesn't have 100% direct control, when it comes to the issues of truck routing, infrastructure, this is obviously very huge in our area. And the county is doing quite a bit to try to balance the continued growth we see, as well as trying to maintain quality of life for residents. So I just want to hear from both of you. What do you think about the county's job so far in trying to deal with that big issue? What do you think is there anything more that should be done? If you were county executive, would you continue what's been happening now with studies that the county is participating in? What are your thoughts on that, and how would you grade the county in terms of its job on that? And let's go backwards. So Mr. Ficarello, let's start with you.
Increased traffic in Will County regrettably has become a reality. The traffic has been an issue mostly affecting state routes and interstate highways. The Will County Highway Department must conduct impact studies on the expansion of any roadway or construction of any new county transportation routes considered. And all this must be taken into account along with the current business, existing businesses, and existing residential developments to see what type of impact these expansions on county roads will have before we go ahead and designate any more truck routes in Will County. The whole issue of warehousing in Will County needs to be slowed down and not rushed. I believe that the North Point development was rushed through without a consideration on what effect it has on Will County residents throughout the entire county. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Bertino-Tarrant.
Well, obviously, the first and most important thing when we're talking about traffic is the safety and well-being of our residents. And this is what we are hearing probably on a daily basis. But, you know, as we know, growth is here to stay. We are a transportation hub, so it's not going to disappear. We need to make sure we are balancing it with responsibility. The county has been involved in numerous studies. It's time to now take those studies and have some action with them. I believe we need a regional approach to this. We have local municipalities who are making decisions as they have a right to do, and I don't disagree with that, but I think we need to start having a regional approach to this and start having discussions on how this impacts us as an entire county. And again, that starts with the county taking the lead. We are seeing moving forward is one of the latest initiatives that the county is having. We're seeking input from local residents, but again, you know, no one wants the traffic. No one likes to be driving down the highway squeezed between two trucks, but we have gone beyond that. We now have to come up with solutions to how we handle that. And again, we have a lot of studies. We just have to make sure those studies now are put into action. And again, I firmly believe that requires a regional approach that's working with our mayors to come up with a collaborative solution.
So I'm going to piggyback on that point, you know, talking about the collaborative approach. As I referenced, you know, the county can only do so much because there are a number of municipalities in the area. I guess the question is, what is your approach to actually trying to convince everybody to kind of row in the same direction? Because everybody has different interests, everybody is different. It's a big county, it's a lot of different industries throughout. So how do you kind of encourage that regional approach when it seems like that's kind of part of the problem now, that everybody's kind of doing their own thing to a certain extent, and it can cause problems for surrounding neighborhoods, even if those residents don't exactly have a direct say in what a certain municipality is doing?
And that's a very valid point. You know, we have many tools right here in Will County that I think we could utilize better. You know, we have the CED, we have the Will County Governmental League. And again, I think it is about we have the people already to get together. I think the discussions are happening. It's about communicating these ideas as well. I'm committed to sitting down with our mayors throughout the county to have these individual conversations. And again, I think it's, you know, I've always been a person who stays in my lane. I recognize what I can and cannot do. So for me, it's never about telling someone what they shouldn't do. It's about having conversations. And my experience with elected officials is that they really want what's best for the community. They want it, you know, they're making decisions what they feel is the best. Is it a difficult task to get people on the same page? Yes, I know that more than anyone being in the Senate. But but there's a way to do it. I mean, we do it every day. We come up with bills every day that we have collaborated on. And you know, that's really the approach we have to take. And it takes a strong leader at the county level just to at least start initiating those conversations. Are we always going to, you know, like you say, roll in the same directions? No. But at least I think there needs to be an attempt to have these conversations. And again, we have a lot of dynamic tools already, and a lot of organizations already there to start the conversation. I'm just not familiar as, you know, how much there's been a leadership at the county to get involved and saying, let's work together.
Okay, and Mr. Ficarello, how would you handle that issue?
First, I believe that the people have to have a say, and I would be willing to talk to and meet with as many representatives or as many individual citizens that have concern about this expansion of warehousing and the impact it's had on our infrastructures. Second thing I would have to say is trying to get the mayors of all municipalities in Will County, along with the county board, to move together in one direction reminds me of someone trying to herd cats. The issue is going to have to be a strong leader who can move people in the right direction for the benefit of our taxpayers and our citizens, and be transparent about it, and not to the point where be transparent about what we're doing to the people and not just putting the growth of warehousing first.
Okay. Somewhat related to this, obviously with the growth comes issues of taxes and our economic state at this point. In the county, at the county level, seems to have been pretty stable over the last several years. When it comes especially to property taxes, I know that's a big issue. County officials have routinely said that, well, if you look at the county portion, it seems relatively low. So fiscal responsibility has seemed to be a priority for county officials over the last several years. So I just kind of want to hear, how would you grade the county's job when it comes to its finances and the financial burden on residents? And we'll start, Mr. Ficarello, with you. How would you grade the county?
The fact of the matter is, Will County has been operating in the black for several years, and I commend the leadership and the county board as a whole for keeping the county in the black. However, the problem has arisen when it comes to developing and building too many schools. There was a school that was built on Harlem Avenue and Lincoln Way School District that is sitting empty, and the taxpayers of the New Lenox and Lincoln Way area are flipping the bill for that $76 million boondoggle, which is still sitting empty and has not been sold or has not had any feasible use to offset the cost to the taxpayers. So I will state that the overall well-being of the county, I give an A. I will also state that the overall use of taxpayer money, if I include this particular issue, I would give a D.
And just a quick follow-up, I know you've been pretty critical of the recent additional gas tax that the county passed last year. This is one of the occasions that it happened that the county executive at the time, Mr. Walsh, having to break a tie because that was a very contested vote. And just to be clear, Mr. Ficarello, if you would have been in that position, you would have voted no on that tax. It was an additional 4-cent tax on residents.
I would have voted no on that 4-cent tax. That 4-cent tax has a written-in clause that can raise up every year up to 8 cents. I also believe that the 4-cent tax, I also know that the 4-cent tax that was passed by the Will County Board, Larry Walsh, was not necessary because there were no direct causes or effects for the 4-cent gas tax. It's kind of like a slush fund that was put in place for potential upgrading of roads. Some roads were named. Some of these roads that were named are smooth as glass. This gas tax was passed with the assumption that the county would upgrade certain roads to 80,000 pounds. Some of these roads have very minimal traffic on it, such as Hoff Road, which goes from the Manhattan Township area down to the Wilmington Township area. That road has no problems at all for current traffic. However, the 4-cent gas tax was passed prior to any vote being taken on North Point, with the assumption that the road needed to be upgraded to 80,000 pound limit, which is the current limit for semis throughout the state of Illinois. However, I haven't seen one semi on that road ever.
Okay. All right. Senator Bertino-Tarrant, how would you grade the county on its finances? And if you want to comment on the gas tax issue, feel free.
Well, I agree. I think the county board and the county elected officials have done a great job at maintaining budgets, and they have been sound fiscal advocates for the county. I agree. They are an A. I mean, they really are conscientious of the decisions they are making, and we have to applaud their efforts. In regards to the gas tax, well, a couple things. One, again, the incident that Mr. Ficarello was talking about is a local decision. It was not a county decision regarding the schools. I'm happy to say, though, I am one of several legislators who are working at the state level to have our Illinois State Police look at that facility. So we are looking for solutions because it is a beautiful building. We also hate to see our local communities having to pay that burden. The gas tax at the state level was a public safety issue. Again, we know that roads and bridges needed help. We talked about I-80 numerous times, and the solution was needed. Any tax increases are a hard vote. We understand that. But again, it was done to ensure that we could fix our roads and ensure people are safe on the roads. At the county level, again, I always say timing is everything. I talked to numerous of our board members when they were making that decision. I probably would not have supported that at the time. We had just had one tax increase. People were still concerned about it. While we have learned that it has not had a big impact we haven't seen gas prices go up significantly because of this gas tax. I do feel like time is everything with this, and at this moment, at the moment when they voted on it, it probably wasn't the best time. But again, $12 million to our highway department is important and needed, and I have every confidence that they are going to take that money and use it wisely.
So just to follow up on that, Senator, so I know you said, it may have not been the best timing, but I guess some of the advocates who say for that additional tax were saying, the longer we wait, the more expensive it's going to be to fix our roads, and the county has quite a few when it comes to what they want to get to in the next 5 to 20 years. It's a big bill, so that's hence why they said the extra revenue is needed. So I would imagine you probably would have pushed for the tax again if you were in that position. It's kind of looking back in the past a little bit, but I'd imagine you would have thought that tax would have been needed pretty soon, if not last year, right?
That's hard to determine. Again, we weren't sure of the impact yet. And again, this is a decision that the county had to make, and I don't fault them. Again, the question was, would I push for it at that time? No, probably not. But I am confident that they made that decision, based on the numbers and their experience and what information they had. When you make this, again, tax increases are hard, no matter what the situation is. You make them for the right reason. I just explained why I voted for the tax increase at the state level. So again, I'm confident that they did it for the right reason. Would I have pushed it at that time? Probably not. Okay.
And Mr. Ficarello, I'll let you respond to this question and end us on this topic. So you made it pretty clear that you were, against implementing that tax. But again, as I was saying, a lot of the advocates of that tax says that, it was millions of dollars in what would have been probably responsibility in terms of maintaining roads in the county that the county just didn't have the revenue for looking long term. So if you would not have been in favor of the tax, how would you have advocated the county be able to meet those expenses down the road? Because there's, as you say, maybe some roads don't need work, but quite a few do. So how would you have tried to attack that solution?
Well, first off, the tax was an unnecessary burden to the taxpayers of Will County. Second, this tax was enacted without any earmarking of the money for any direct resolution for the money to be used for. In other words, this tax was enacted for no specific purpose. It might have been enacted for a future purpose, but that wasn't explained to the taxpayers, and that wasn't explained when it was passed. It was just assumed that this money was earmarked for road upgrades. I don't believe in continuously putting unnecessary burdens on our taxpayers. Our taxpayers have enough tax burden as it is with our high property taxes and other taxes that are paid throughout the county.
Well, to be clear, I believe legally the tax revenue could only be used for road upgrades. So I don't know exactly what you meant by earmarking, but it couldn't be used for anything outside of that, to be clear. Okay, I want to move on to a topic that's obviously kind of affected all of our lives. And while the county executive doesn't have a whole lot of jurisdiction over this, you know, I think you both have been either involved or very vocal about this issue, which is the COVID-19 response in our state. Obviously, you in the Senate, Senator, and Mr. Ficarello, you've had some interesting critiques that I want to hear about how the state has been handling this issue. So just coming to here generally, you know, how do you think the state has handled this pandemic when it came to the economic impact, as well as kind of providing relief for families and municipalities and organizations? Senator Bertino-Tarrant, let's start with you. How would you grade the state's response to this pandemic?
Well, I think I'll give them a B plus, A minus. And again, you know, I've said this before. This is not a political issue. This is a health crisis, and you know, I think our governor has taken action that he has relied upon the medical professionals to help guide him with these decisions. And you know, if you ask people, I think, and you know, and I know, you know, there's polls out there. Most people are agreeing with what the governor has done. I think that here's what the state has not turned its back. We understand the economic impact that this has on people. No one wants a business to close. No one wants to have to shut anything down temporarily. Again, this was about health, safety, and the advice that not only our state was doing, but other states were doing to ensure that we did not spread this, virus. But again, we have taken action, and maybe it's slower than people want, to protect our citizens, whether it's the business grants, whether it is helping people expanding unemployment, whether it's halting evictions. We have not, you know, the state has not turned its back on its residents. It's been a balanced approach. I understand as this continues, people get more frustrated, and we want things to open up, but we know that this virus is very real. It's very serious. We've seen just as recently as this week some strong community leaders who passed from this disease. We know that it affects people differently, but we have to take it serious. And I think as citizens, we're responsible to try to help one another. It's been turned into a political issue, which for me is very, very unfortunate. But I think we need to continue the message of wearing a mask, you know, social distancing, and washing your hands. We don't know when a virus or a vaccine is going to happen. So we need to take responsibility, help one another, but at the same time, help our businesses. And the state of Illinois has not turned its back on the people of Illinois.
And Mr. Ficarello, how would you, I know you've had some, like I said, very strong critiques about how the governor and the state has handled this. How would you grade their performance? And maybe you also want to address what the senator said there about this kind of turning into a political issue.
First off, let me state that I believe the virus is real. However, the numbers that have been reported are not. First, I agree with social distancing, wearing a mask. frequently sanitizing your hands and using a common sense approach to stop this virus, same as you would any other flu virus that's active. We're still finding out about this virus, and the scientists haven't come up with all the answers yet. Secondly, I believe the number of deaths throughout the county, the country, and also in the state have increased because of poor management. Patients in nursing homes have accounted for 48% of all deaths in Illinois, according to the last numbers I saw a little bit over a week ago. 48%, that's a lot, caused from nursing home management. Nursing homes are not hospitals. They do a wonderful job, but they are not hospitals. These patients should have been placed in hospitals. The positivity rate that was reported by the Department of Health at Will County is deceptive. The Department of Will County counted the number of positive cases that were contrasted by what was real, and that's the number of positive people getting the virus. The number that was reported was deceptive and did not reflect an accurate number of individuals that were infected. The deception was used to cause stricter mitigation and rules limiting business, and businesses throughout Will County have suffered. If the numbers are not true and accurate representation of what's actually happening, then the science and the numbers pertaining to the science about this subject are also off and skewed. I give the governor credit for trying to come up with a plan. However, when the governor tells us when you're outside on a boat, you could have 2 people as long as there's social distancing. However, you could put 6 people in a car. That makes absolutely no sense to me at all. Where is the logic in this? I guess it was thrown out the window. Is this virus beatable? Yes. Has the line flatlined as far as our number of total people infected decreased dramatically? Yes. Is the virus still active? Yes. And if I remember my college days and taking biology class, most viruses weaken after an amount of time because they actually, I know this sounds stupid because viruses don't have a brain, but most viruses decrease in their strength to try to stay active. That's the science.
Okay, so you made a lot of points there. So I've heard you and other Republicans make this point before about questioning the data that led to, for those who probably remember, not too long ago, our positivity rate in the region, Will and Kankakee counties, was high enough to where the state put on additional restrictions to slow the virus, which seemed to have worked. But I know there was a lot of questioning about how the state calculated that data, specifically our test positivity rate. And if I'm, representing your argument here correctly, it's you and others have said that instead of using just the number of tests and positive tests that is recorded in the state or in the region, you guys feel like the number of, which could count someone multiple times because you can test positive multiple times or negative. Instead of using those numbers, you think other numbers should be used. Am I representing your stance correctly?
I believe the numbers of actual people infected should be used and not the number of people infected plus the amount of tests that are conducted on the same person. And that has been proven to be correct by the Joliet Chamber of Commerce. And if I remember the number correctly, it resulted in an extra 250 positive tests in Will County, which is probably what caused us to receive a certain mitigation as far as the choice of the governor to put us on further restrictions.
Well, to be clear, I think the IDPH director said that using positive tests kind of gave them a better. It says, I'll quote here. It says, Dr. Ngozi-Ezike said that using that metric gives them a better represents how widely the virus is being transmitted in a given area. So I understand there's some people who have differences in opinions to what metrics could be used, but again, just speaking to what the senator said, about this being political, if you and other colleagues say things like that, this is deceptive. That I think you even used the term "state of deception" in a press conference a few weeks back. Is this the kind of language you think is responsible for in a time like this, when a lot of people hear what public officials and politicians say, and maybe you don't delegitimize the virus, but maybe they use those words to delegitimize the virus?
Alex, I said at the initial onset of the question, I believe the virus is real. I also stated that the positivity rate caused us to have an increased number of positive quote unquote cases. People need to know that the positivity rate does not mean the number of positive individuals. If I came down with the virus and I self-quarantined, and the only time I went out was to go to the doctor's office or the hospital, what are the chances of me infecting someone else? You bring up the fact that you're talking about a positivity rate that might show how the virus is spreading, if I'm correct in what you're saying and what you're arguing for.
You're trying to. It's the IDPH director who said that, not me.
I'm sorry?
It's the IDPH director who said that, not me.
Well, I think I think that the numbers were wrong. People want to know how many people are infected with the virus on a daily basis, not how many people are infected with the virus, plus how many tests were done repeatedly on the same person. And that's at the discretion of the doctors or the hospitals. If I have a virus today and 2 days from now I go back in and I am tested and that virus shows positive, why should that count as an additional case? I'm still the same person. I don't have 2 cases of the virus. I still have my same case of the virus. I don't have 2. So why are those numbers being used even by the Illinois Department of Health? I just can't understand this. Why aren't we honest with our people and our taxpayers? And why aren't we telling people the real numbers? I'm sorry, my dog's getting upset.
Okay, well, to be clear, every individual person is marked as additional, as their own case, but in terms of a positive test, they could be.
Alex, I appreciate your opinion, but I also am a citizen and I am entitled to my opinion. And I'm not stupid.
Okay, it's not my opinion, so I'm just saying what the experts saying. Okay, Senator, do you think some of these critiques are kind of warranted, or do you have any sort of differences of opinion in terms of how the states use data to make these decisions that very much impact the lives of residents?
Good. My experience has been this. Anytime, and now just because Mr. Ficarello brought it up, when the Joliet Chamber was concerned with it, and it had their list of questions, it was me and my colleagues again who set up the conversation so they could hear directly from Dr. Ezeki why the rationale. Is my understanding that the chamber was satisfied with those answers. Again, the chamber is an organization, it's fighting for their businesses as they should. But again, the Will County Health Department, again, has refuted some of the claims that were made. I am not the one taking the data. I am not the one sharing the data with the state. I have talked to the health department. They seem confident in what the state is doing. I had numerous conversations with them. And so again, it becomes more about protecting our citizens, the safety of our citizens. And that's always going to be my priority. I understand that people do not, I understand the restraint. I understand that people do not like it. I hear these calls on a daily basis. I think we need to continue with these conversations. Communication needs to continue. I would like to see our health department out there more explaining this so we don't have these side conversations where people do not understand. So again, we're not ignoring the citizens in Will County. As legislators at the state level, we are engaging in conversations. Some people some people are fine with the explanation. Some people never will be.
Okay. Mr. Ficarello, is there anything else you wanted to respond to there?
All I could say is that there were 177 people in Will County died in nursing homes because they were not receiving proper care. A. B. Why are we increasing the numbers? Everyone must ask themselves, why are the numbers being increased? And how are they being increased? Is it a common practice to have 1, 2, 3, or 5 tests after you test positive? What's the number? Some people have 5, some people have less, some people have more. There's no science there. Science is based on numbers. There is no science there. This is being used for whatever purpose, and I believe our health department has received orders from the Illinois Department of Health to follow their lead on this. Often, I've spoken to nurses that also wish to remain anonymous, and they have stated that if someone comes into their facility and has the sniffles, a cold, some type of flu, frequently they're just cited as COVID positive and moved on without even a test. So where's the science? The science has gone out the window.
Okay, I'm not quite sure about that last claim, and I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention that. I know I've heard the Will County Health Director talk about how, again, yes, if you get tested multiple times and it's positive, those are technically multiple positives, but you could also get tested negative multiple times. So it could balance out, although I don't know any statistically significant data that would say that either of those phenomena kind of skews our numbers. But somewhat related to this, when it comes to, again, the politicization of these big issues, I think for the most part, it's fair to say that at the county level, legislators and county officials work very well together in a bipartisan way. But just because of the political environment we're in, I know this has been kind of more of there've been more heated discussions about topics every once in a while, whether it's about taxes or the marijuana debate, or just statements of support for certain policies that the county doesn't necessarily have any direct control over. So I kind of want to hear from both of you. How would you, and Mr. Ficarello, start with you, how would you kind of work in a bipartisan manner to kind of try to de-escalate the polarization and politicization of these issues? What is your philosophy when it comes to dealing with that?
I've been involved in negotiating numerous labor contracts, which at times I've been on the side of the union as a union representative and president, and other times I've sat across them as an administrator in law enforcement. The first thing you have to do is find common ground. Once you find common ground, you build on that common ground and go from there. There is always the opportunity for compromise on both sides, and the compromise has to be mutual and agreed upon on both sides. The issue is that we have become a very divisive nation from the bottom up, not just the top down, but also from the bottom up. All of these issues in this election, whether they're local, state, or federal, have divided this country. This country needs to go back to healing itself and get back on the right track. COVID, along with the violent protests, have created what I've often heard of is the perfect storm. And the perfect storm is causing us to even be more further split apart. We're all Americans. As the Bible says under King James, we're all the same blood. The newer version of the Bible, the NIV, states, I believe, we're all of the same flesh. There should be no difference between any of us. We're all Americans, and we should be able to work together to make Will County a better, more safer place to live, so that we could attract business, small business, manufacturing, whatever it takes. Will County is the third largest or third fastest growing county. Many other areas are leaving, many other citizens are leaving Will County. So we have to reestablish our lead as the place where people want to go in Illinois.
Okay. Before I give the senator time to talk in, I do want to bring up something I know I received from your campaign, Mr. Ficarello, not too long ago. I hear you talking about, encouraging unity and trying to kind of get back to times where we were a lot less polarized as a country. But, again, I was reading from a press release here where you were asking the senator to kind of decry sanctuary cities, or asking if she supports universal health care for quote unquote illegal aliens. These seem to be pretty politically divisive issues that you were trying to bring up in this campaign, and also there are certain issues that just the county doesn't really have to do much with at all. You're calling for unity on one hand, but you're also trying to ask or inject certain issues that really, again, have not much to do with the race at all, that are very politically divisive into this campaign. Is there not a bit of a discrepancy between your words in like that press release and your words now?
The current position that my opponent holds can cause influence over whether or not certain areas are sanctuary or not. I know that in 2017, under a Republican governor, he basically made the whole state a sanctuary state. But my question is whether or not she supports these quote unquote illegal aliens, or if you want to call them undocumented aliens, on receiving health care at the taxpayer expense. I'm calling for unity, but I believe the people have a right to know what her stance is pertaining to issues that affect each and every one of the existing legal citizens in this country. My father came here as an immigrant. He came here legally. We welcome all people legally. I do not support anybody coming to this country illegally. People are more concerned about opening up our borders and seeing what happens when you open up our borders. You're more concerned about the pandemic that's occurring. What about the issue of people coming from third world countries, crossing the border, bringing along with them certain types of viruses or diseases that are unaccounted for or untested?
Okay. Senator, if you want to address anything from there, feel free, but you're coming from a particularly politically divisive area as well, the state legislature, but how would you kind of approach this issue of polarization at the county level?
Well, I guess I could begin by just using the term illegal alien is divisive in and of itself. My approach has been, since I walked into the Senate chamber, has been about being nonpartisan and working for good policy. And I think my record is very clear on what I have done. And it has required working on both sides of the aisle. Every approach, every bill I have taken, it has been a very open conversation. You can ask people who have worked with me, again, in Springfield on either side, that I am open to all suggestions because I am 100% about good policy. The politics is part of this, but I don't play into it. We all know that I have disagreements with my Democratic colleagues. Yes, I have different disagreements with my Republican colleagues, but in the end, I focus on good policy. And if that requires working with people, and I'm confident I can continue to do that. I've known the current members on the county board on both sides for several years. We are friendly to each other, and I plan to continue to operate in that fashion.
And I probably would also be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to ask you about something that Republicans have continually tried to call out Democrats for, which is the man who is leading the House of Representatives in Springfield, and also the Democratic Party, which is Speaker Mike Madigan. He's obviously been dogged down by scandals, especially one recently. I figure I should just ask you. I realize you're in the Senate, but you are a member of the Democratic Party, and you're coming from the state legislature. What do you think should happen? Should Speaker Madigan step down from his positions as House Representative, Speaker, or the chairman of your party?
You know, anytime you hear stories like this, it's disappointing, and it tarnishes us as a profession. As you said, I am not in the House. The district attorney is investigating this. The House has created a committee to investigate it, and so the process has already taken place. And it's not being ignored. There are steps being taken to address it.
But do you take a position on whether or not he should step down at this point from any of his positions?
I think that's a personal decision that he has made. I have no influence in that decision that he makes. Again, he is under investigation. There's been no crime that has been committed. I look forward. We are, as a body, we are addressing ethics reform, and I think topics such as this, what happens if people are accused versus which, as opposed to if they're actually indicted, are topics we are addressing. So I look forward to working on that during veto session.
Okay, and I guess there's maybe kind of a more broader question about very much related to the speaker and these scandals, but also to other legislators as well. Do you think your party, the Democratic Party, has done enough to kind of rid itself of this, these allegations of corruption, these whether or not they're effective or not is a totally different question, but obviously Republicans have continued to use these attacks on Democrats at all levels of government, even if they don't actually run for state legislature. Do you think your party has done enough to kind of purge itself of these types of windows for attack or opportunities for attack?
We have, immediately we have taken action and to address these concerns. And we have to remember, this is not just a Democratic issue. Since I've been in the Senate, it has happened on both sides of the aisle. And so again, every situation that occurs, we take very seriously. And they are not ignored. Steps are taken. And again, we've been working on ethics now for COVID has slowed it down, but I was just in Springfield last week where we spent a whole day on working on the draft of legislations to address ethics reform. So to say it's ignored, I don't think it is a fair statement. We do take steps to address these issues.
Okay. Just close out here, Mr. Ficarello. Is there anything you want to respond to there?
I lost your last audio. My internet switched over to slow. Could you repeat that?
I was just asking if you wanted to respond to anything, if you wanted to respond to anything that the senator said about, she's saying that her party has definitely not ignored some of these claims and instances of corruption and wrongdoing by legislators in Springfield.
First off, you don't get put in jail for robbing a bank. You get put in jail for robbing a bank and getting caught. So far, Speaker Madigan has not been caught. It doesn't mean that he's guilty or innocent. It means that the investigation must continue. In and of the fact that a fine was assessed against ComEd tells me, as a previous police officer, that that's a clue. There's probably something there. And
okay.
That's my stance.
Okay. All right. I'm going to change the topic here a little bit back to more something more salient to the county. Recently, county officials have been talking about undergoing certain measures to kind of encourage inclusivity and diversity, especially when it comes to hiring and when it comes to allowing different businesses to be involved in county business. The current interim county executive has voiced support for conducting a disparity study to kind of evaluate county processes at all levels. And she has also said that she would be in favor of hiring an officer to kind of oversee this study and other county practices, again, to ensure that when it comes to hiring and contracting, that the county is fair to as many people as possible, especially when it comes to small businesses owned by people of color and women. So I just want to hear from you guys. Were you in favor of these types of measures, doing a study and hiring somebody to oversee that this issue of inclusivity and diversity? And if not, what would you do differently? And Senator, let's start with you.
Yeah, Will County, we know Will County is a very diverse community, and I believe that county government should reflect the citizens it serves. The diversity study is a first step in understanding the culture of our county, and yes, I support that.
Okay, Mr. Ficarello.
Several months ago, Alex, I believe you were there, I brought out the fact that in an open forum that the county needs to go back 5 years to see whether or not there was or is any problem in hiring practices such as hiring general contractors or contractors who are working on any building projects to ascertain if the jobs have been given out through the good old boy network or if the jobs have been given out fairly. I support the diversity study. However, I believe it can be accomplished with existing staff and also with certain officials on the county board in a committee fashion. I believe that if there is a problem in how people are hired or how people are treated, it should be addressed. After I made that comment that we should go back at least 5 years to see if these jobs and contracts have been given out fairly. Nobody mentioned anything else about it until just recently. I believe Joliet City also printed something shortly after I said we need to go back at least 5 years. Alex, if you remember right, that was at the Renaissance Center and you were in the audience and I made that comment. So I support any diversity studies and also to see if there's been any issues in hiring. We want to get away, if it exists, the good old boy network of hiring. And just recently, I was endorsed by the South Suburban Black Regional Chamber of Commerce because of my stance on that.
Okay. All right, so about to wrap up here. Jeff, did you have anything else you wanted to add or ask?
I had a few questions and you hit them all.
Okay,
So,
great. All right, so I'll just give you each last few minutes here just to kind of give your final pitch to the voters. Why should the voters of Will County pick you to be the next executive of the county? Mr. Ficarello, start with you.
First off, my priorities are to provide an environment for small business success. This can be done by providing families and business with a safe, law-abiding community. Creating jobs within the community always is a priority for me, and I will strive to make Will County a welcoming environment. I will also veto any action initiated by the Will County Board or any resolution initiated to defund the Will County Sheriff's Police. I will further act as an advocate and spokesperson for any department in Will County, any police department in Will County that might be going through a defunding process with their current municipal administration under these current conditions.
Okay, and Senator Bertino-Tarrant.
Well, again, thank you for having me. For those of you who don't know me, I am a mom. I'm an educator. I've been a public servant for the last 14 years. In Springfield, I've been one of the leading voices for working families, and I want to continue that advocacy here in Will County. I will continue to foster expansion and positive, reasonable expansion in Will County, which serves the backbone of our community. I believe government services need to keep pace with the growth of our communities. We need quality public service, which means that we need to be smarter and more transparent. I'm running for Will County Executive because I have the experience and the leadership that our county needs. I've got a history of working across the aisle to get things done, and I'm ready to help move the region to the next phase of growth and success. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Senator Bertino-Tarrant and Mr. Ficarello, and appreciate you giving us your time. Again, we're here with the candidates for Will County Executive. Remember, the election is November 3rd, but early voting is happening now, so everybody please register and vote. Thank you again. My name is Alex Ortiz with the Herald News and Shaw Local News Network. For Jeff Knox, my colleague at the Daily Herald. Appreciate your time so much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.